Hi English 10, Miss Long here. This is the video for Unit 8, Session 3, and that is the session in our short story unit when we turn our attention from reading other short stories and analyzing why they're great to actually producing a short story yourself. So in this session, after we go past the optional work ethic and the optional weekly journal, you're going to then turn your attention to starting your own short story, and that's the primary task for this session. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get an understanding of what it is that you're going to produce. And that is a short story, approximately 600 to 800 words in length. Can be longer. Any shorter probably won't be a good story. It needs to have a good theme on a message, something that is important to us as human beings, with an opening, dialogue, conclusion, action, conflict, and a related theme, and imagery and figurative language that support that idea. That is the goal, and you'll see in this unit, in this session, there are some examples and rubrics you can use so that you can figure out exactly what it is that your short story is going to be. Now, my kids in elementary school are writing stories. My own kids in elementary school are writing stories. Yours are going to be different because they're higher level, more complex themes, better identification of character, better depiction of characters, and things like that are really outlined in these rubrics. So make sure that you know what a sophomore level short story is supposed to look like. I encourage you as you get started to take a look at some of the masters that we have read and studied previously, Kurt Vonnegut, Ray Bradbury, John Dufresne, and Stephen King, some different videos that give advice from these masters on how to write a short story. And then I encourage you also to come up with an idea using the tools that are provided. So, for example, John Steinbeck wrote from his own experience, and last session you had a chance to read the short story 10th grade on Halloween. That was to show you that very familiar settings to you can also make good short stories. You may want to start with a literary element like a character that you really want to work with, an interesting person, or a setting that you find particularly intriguing, or the theme that you want to make happen. And there's some examples here you can use. You can also take a look at some of our computerized plot generators, random plot generators and short story ideas, and use some of these to come up with an idea. But you'll come up with an idea for your short story, keep the number of characters limited, try to focus on just one particular theme that you're going to emphasize, and then you'll use the short story planner that I've provided, linked with Google Docs, and upload it here. You can find that attachment. And you'll go into that, make a copy, of course. Make a copy with ideally your name in the title. And you're going to outline for me what type of story you're doing, the genre, the main point of your story, the message that you're trying to convey. You'll describe your characters, their motivations, their physical appearance, some figurative language you might use to describe them, the conflict your character is going to be in, and how your character is going to change. Usually that theme is tied to the character change. So if there's no change in the character, you're probably off the mark there. You're probably going to need at least one more minor character that I'd like you to also outline. That would be, again, description of the character, motivations, physical description, figurative language, actions that are going to show those traits. And then you're going to tell me a little bit about the conflict, because every good short story has a conflict, right? What type of conflict is this? How could it be resolved? How will it be resolved? And how does that resolution really communicate the theme that you're trying to convey here? Once you've done that, I'd ask you to focus on your setting and think about the lemon brown from session 1 as you go through this, the year, the decade, the time of year, the time of day that the story takes place, the description of that era. Give me a specific place, like a building, a rundown building that you're going to have it in, like lemon brown, and some figurative language that you might use to describe that setting. Go back to Unit 7 and think about the figurative language used to describe that rickety old house tenement that they lived in and how depressing that was. Think about how you can use figurative language for your setting. And think about why you chose that particular setting. Why wouldn't you put it in another time or place? You're going to outline your plot, your exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. Again, this should be familiar from Raisin in the Sun. And then think about the hook. And that was something we looked at in session 2. Different ways to bring the reader into your story and engage them and get that interest going. You'll finally want to think about the perspective. Do you want to tell this in first person, third person limited, where you don't know what the person's thinking, or third person omniscient, where you can pull in that person's thoughts? And finally, the style, the mood that you want to create, the types of words and sentences, paragraphing, dialogue, things like that. Once you have this short story planner submitted as your first assignment and completed for yourself, then you'll go into drafting your paper. You're drafting your short story. Just sit down and get it out. Don't even think about the errors. Don't think about, did I do everything on the rubric? Just get your ideas out. And you can use a couple of these tips here to try to do that, because some of you will struggle more. Some of you have already written your short story in your head otherwise. Some of you are really going to struggle. And if you're going to struggle, then just take your clipboard, go to a different place, have a good friend, type while you talk. Just find a way to get something out. So when you have your short story, you're going to post it on a discussion board for some review from other people, and you'll give some feedback to some of your peers. Then in the following session, in our session 4, that is our final session for the year, you will take whatever's here and revise it. So get some feedback from people in our class, get some feedback from me. I'll take a look at it. I'm happy to work with you individually if you're struggling. So this is where you're headed. Let me know what questions you have and have a good week.